Hi, this is James Knight. I'm a senior consultant on Proofpoint's professional services team, and today's tutorial is going to review how to build your Proofpoint cluster. We're going to be discussing how to add the agents to the master, but before we do so, it's important to understand the master and the agent's roles. We're going to review the host name override, discuss the communication between the master and the agent, and from the agent back to the master. We're going to be discussing if the master is healthy so that we can add the agents. That means that we're going to review the licensing, review the services, and make sure it has all of its updates. Then we'll go about adding the agents to the cluster. And if you have any issues, we'll provide some troubleshooting tips in case you cannot get an agent added to the master. Let's talk about the roles of the master and the agent. The master is primarily responsible for the following roles. The administration console, that's the GUI that you use to manage the system, as well as change settings and those settings being pushed to the agents. It's responsible for the quarantine information that's collected by all of the agents. It's where we do our searching for messages to find out what was the status of the message as it was processed across the cluster, as well as reporting. And lastly, it's responsible for the web services. The agents are primarily responsible for filtering email, routing of email, and if you've purchased the licensing for Secure Reader, it also has that special role. We're going to discuss for a few minutes about the host name override as you built these systems. You probably recall that when you built your system originally, you went through the command line interface and you specified the IP address as well as the netmask, the auto negotiation, the gateway, the host name of the system, the domain name, the DNS servers, and then the host name override is specifically a setting where if we're on the master, we need to tell the master where to find the agents. So in this case, I'm going to be putting in the IP address of the agent, followed by the host name, followed by the fully qualified domain name. Now we're going to take the opportunity to remind you how we originally built out and configured one of the agents. So we're going to focus on one of those agents at this point. If you recall, when we built out the agent, we put in its IP address, its network mask, its default gateway, the host name of that system, calling it agent, the domain name, the primary DNS and secondary DNS, and then we came to this setting called host name override. Now, while the settings on the agent needs to know about the master. So on the agent's host override, that's where we put in the IP address of the master, the host name of the master, followed by the fully qualified domain name of the master. And we applied those settings. So I'd like to also review the host name override in another way to help better understand it. So right now we have this master with this IP address of 192.168.1.100. The agents have 101 followed by 102 respectively. And inside the settings that we just reviewed in the host name override, the master needs to know about how to find the agent. So in the master, we would have applied all of the IP addresses of those agents. In this example where you see the master has an IP address of 100 and the agents have an IP address of 101 and 102, the master needs to know about the agent and how to find it. So we put in the IP address, the host name, followed by the fully qualified domain name. Now on the agents only need to know one thing, and that is where to find the master. It does not need to know about all of the agents in the cluster like the master does. So the settings on agent 1, it only needs to know about where the master is. You can see the IP address of 192.168.1.100. So on the agent, we're going to apply the IP address of that master, the name of the master, followed by the fully qualified domain name of the master. And each agent, no matter how many agents in your cluster that you're going to have, will just only need to have the IP, host name, and FQDN of the master. So I hope that explains host override a little bit more. Now let's take a few minutes to talk about the communication from the master to the agent. As you can see above, with this master, it's going to communicate over to the agent over port 10,000. The agent then would communicate back to the master on port 10,010 as well as 3306. Those ports again, you can see that port 10,000 is going to go over and communicate to the agent, and the agent is going to communicate back using 10,010 back to the master. Please take note that on 3306, it is TCP and UDP traffic. So you've built your master. The system was activated. Now you're to verify that the master is healthy. So let's show you a video of the process of once the system becomes activated, the processes of getting the system up to date and ensuring it's healthy. You can see here that everything on the far right side, it says unknown. Check for updates. When the master is created and it's just activated, it's downloading the license information of the cluster. So it may take some time before it shows up to date. Notice the status column does not say up to date. We'll give it a few minutes. Now going back to System, going to License and Updates, selecting General. After waiting some time, you'll notice now the status shows up to date on the spam engine, the antivirus engine, and all of the modules. This may vary depending on how many modules you purchased, your bandwidth, and system performance. Now that the master is healthy and up to date, we're now ready to add the agents. By going to the system, selecting servers, you see that the master and all of its services are set to green. We're now ready to add the agent. We'll select Add Agent. We'll go ahead and put in the host name of the server. Put in the password in which you originally assigned when building the agent. Clicking Add Agent, we'll see a dialog box come up, and we'll be waiting to add the agent. After every minute or so, it's good to click on this dialog box that says Adding Server, Please Wait, to keep your browser session alive, to make sure it doesn't expire. You can see now the server has been added successfully. You will notice the name of the master, and then you'll see the agent that's been added. Right now it's set to green, but this will change. As the agent now is added into the master, the master is going to start sending information to the agent. It's very normal to see that this agent goes to a yellow warning and stops and restarts services as it's deploying configuration to the agent. So we'll need to be patient for a while so that the agent can get updated. If you have one or more agents, you can go ahead and continue to add the other agents. If you have an agent that's in a data center that's not in the same data center as the master, adding this agent could take some amount of time. So please be patient for that. Congratulations, your Proofpoint cluster has now been built. We did it. The next section is specifically for troubleshooting in the event you had any errors upon adding the agent to the cluster. So let's say the agent was not able to be added to the cluster successfully, and you received some error. What to do next? I'm going to take you through on the console of the Proofpoint system. If it's a physical appliance, I would go through a KVM or through the DRAC interface or directly to the keyboard, monitor, and mouse. If you're in a virtual environment, as in this demo, you can use your vSphere client or a vSphere web client to open up the console. On the left side of the screen here, you'll notice the console of the master. On the right side of the screen, you'll see that I have the agent console up. I've logged on as my admin account. I've signed in, and I'm at the main menu. The first thing I would do is go to the Advanced System Control Operations on both systems, go to the Remote SSH, and enable SSH access for all, and say yes. This is going to restart the services and bring us back to the main menu. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the agent. I'm going to select Enable Remote SSH Access for All and press Enter. And it returns back to the main menu. Now that I have enabled SSH access, I should be able to use a PuTTY client to SSH into both the master as well as the agent. In this scenario, I'll just remain inside the vSphere console. And you'll notice here where you can go to option number 5, the Advanced System Control Operations, and select Command Prompt. I'm going to do the same thing on the master. I'm going to go down to option number 7 on the Advanced menu option and go to the command line interface. You can see on the left I'm still on the master. I'm going to do some basic troubleshooting to make sure that the master can communicate to the agent successfully. First, we've said in the past that the master is going to communicate to the agent on port 10,000. So I'm going to telnet to my agent on port 10,000. I see that I am able to connect so that I know that there is a session. I'm also seeing that it says the IP address of the agent. So I know it was able to resolve that name, Agent 1, to the IP address of the agent and shows connected. At this point, I'm going to go on to the agent and attempt to telnet back to the master on port 10,010. I see that I am connected. So now I'm going to connect back to the master on port 33 06. And I see that it says connect to the address 192.168.1.150, which is the IP address of the master. So I know that the resolution of the name master does resolve to the correct IP address of this master. However, I'm getting a connection refused. When you get any errors while you're in the process of telnetting back to the master, that's usually a sure indication that there's some sort of firewall from the agent to the master. Once you resolve the issue with the firewall, you'll be able to go back into the agent and attempt to telnet back to the master. So let's try this test again now that my firewall now has access. I'm able to see that I'm able to connect, and I even see that the database is responding. Now that I have successful connectivity from the agent to the master and from the master to the agent, I'm ready to attempt to add the agent back into the master. After re-attempting to add the agent back into the master, I'm now successfully able to add the agent. At this point, if you're still experiencing any issues, please reach out to your Proofpoint consultant. I want to thank you for watching today's tutorial, and I hope you have a great day.